Birds of a feather don't just flock together. They also influence each other's behavior. Group psychology affects productivity. This is a double-edged sword.
More contenders may drop off the competition at an even earlier stage of the hanging challenge, if the group was not divided. N effect in this case had been reduced by half simply by dividing the challenge into two groups.
Touted as the real-life Squid Game, the Netflix survival show Physical 100, which first streamed in Netflix on the 24th of January 2023, has become the most successful Korean TV variety show to date, just 15 days after its release. According to Flix Patrol, it scored as the most viewed TV show on the streaming service in 38 nations, including South Korea, Canada, France, Sweden, Singapore and Vietnam. It placed second in 15 nations, including the United States, Brazil, Hungary, Kenya, the Philippines and Qatar, and took third place in 11 other nations. Physical 100 pits 100 contenders in grueling challenges, to test their physical and mental limits. The rule is simple: get physical and be the last one standing for a cash prize of 300 million Korean won, which is around 238,000 United States dollars. This 9-episode show has created huge buzz globally and abroad, with its gladiator-style fighting, and a setting reminiscent of Netflix series, Squid Game. During team challenges, the contenders were required to form teams where the weaker teams will be eliminated from the game. Male contenders were quick to dismiss selecting female and other male contenders with smaller build. Media users were in uproar over how the women contenders or contenders with physical injuries were glanced over by the seemingly stronger male contestants. In this video, we will explore the psychology of these contenders through these competitive games, in attempts to unravel the thought processes of human psychology under the conditions of intense rivalry and stress. How these thought processes shape the decisions of the contenders, giving rise to the consequences and results, to determine the outcomes of the challenges and competition. Spoiler alert: be warned that in discussing the psychology behind the challenges, the results to some of the quests will be revealed.
The show started with a long introduction, where all 100 contenders were invited into a meeting arena, and were asked to locate the casts of their own torsos. The contenders, who were unaware of the rules, the challenges and who they would be competing with, were deliberately paced out to arrive at different times. This gave the opportunity for the producers to introduce each contender as they arrive, providing the details of their athletic talents, their occupations and backgrounds. More importantly, they provide sufficient time for the contenders to interact and know each other right from the start of the competition. This is craftily engineered by the producers, and is in a way, important for the contenders as it allows them to even up the competition arena. In fact, there were a few other instances, where the producers thread the fine balance between leveling up the playing field for the contestants while keeping the competitive motivation high. We will see this in the later part of the game. Big names in the sporting industry had been invited to play in this competition, including MMA professionals, who won championship titles like Chu Sung-hoon, also known as Yoshihiro Akiyama. Winter Olympics gold medalist Yun Sung-bin, national team wrestlers Nam Kyung-jin and Jang Eun-sil, celebrity bodybuilders like Kim Chun-ri and An Da-jung, and even Navy Underwater Demolition Team, UDT, SEAL reservists like Wang Ji-hun, or otherwise known as Agent H. While celebrity contenders were strong assurance to boost viewership, their presence provided harrowing pressures on the rest of the contenders. Their celebrity and legendary status may create mental setbacks for the relatively normal contestants, and this may in turn lead to unfair advantages, skewing towards one side. The chance to mingle and interact helps to alleviate any mental barrier or star-struck effect. Through the mingling and informal chit-chats, the contenders get to feel the celebrities at grassroots levels, allowing them to realize how humanly close they are with themselves. Another psychological phenomenon that went rampant during the introductory phase is the birds of a feather syndrome. This is a group phenomenon, which describes how human beings tend to be attracted to, and be affiliated with people similar to themselves. This results in friendships and cliques, wherein individuals having similar interests circulate in the same network. Here, we see that the contenders are starting to form informal groups on their own. They obviously know the stakes in this competition, and are looking around for people whom they can collaborate with, and strategize together, to make the ultimate outcomes and rewards more reachable. It is also noteworthy to mention that birds of a feather don't just flock together. They also influence each other's behavior. Group psychology affects productivity. This is a double-edged sword. Sometimes groups have a social facilitation effect on performance, spurring us on to greater achievements. At the same time, people are likely to display group polarization when together. This means that initial preferences actually become exaggerated by group discussions. We will see how these psychological phenomenons unfold and how they influence the competitive outcomes later as the game progresses on.
First challenge. This was technically a pre-quest challenge. There will be no eliminations. Contestants will hang from a metal frame by their arms for as long as possible, and the winners gained a privilege in the first official quest. The privilege is not revealed at this point. In the first official quest, 50% of the contenders will be eliminated from the competition. The contenders were split into two groups. Contenders with stronger upper limb strength and relatively lower body weight have advantage in this hanging challenge. The ultimate winner of the challenge goes to Kim Min-chul, who works on the Bukhansan Special Mountain Rescue Team. He is also an ice climber. While this may not be a big surprise after knowing his background, it is the first few contenders who dropped out that created some interests. In the first group, barely 10 seconds after the challenge started, a male contestant dropped out, to be followed soon by more. The early fallout could be a deliberate act of strategizing in this competition. However, it also coincides with a psychological phenomenon displayed in social competitions known as the N effect, a study published in 2009. N refers to the number of contenders in a competition. The abstract of this study revealed that as the number of contenders, N, increases, there is a decrease in competitive motivation. This study shows that generally, people get more competitive competing in smaller groups than larger ones. There are many factors that also play significant roles in this dynamics, but the basic idea stands. The study also showed that the N effect works differently on different individuals. People who are oriented towards social comparison are highly sensitive to the N effect, while people who are less oriented towards social comparison are also less affected. In other words, people who are motivated by comparison to others perceive an opportunity to stand out among a small group of competitors, and thus become more competitive. On the contrary, they become less motivated in a larger group, where it's less likely they will be able to compare themselves favorably. This could be the reason why the producers divided the group into two, since the psychology of competition indicates it's beneficial to compete in small, rather than large groups. More contenders may drop off the challenge at an even earlier stage, if the group was not divided. N effect in this case had been reduced by half simply by dividing the challenge into two groups. Otherwise, it could have just been a safety consideration, as the well-being of the contenders are better managed during the challenge in smaller groups. Next, the contenders moved to the first quest in the competition. Contestants would pit it against each other in a one-on-one fight for possession of a ball. Whoever was holding the ball when the time ran out won the quest. They had a choice of two arenas. One was a playground with lots of obstacles to climb and hide behind. The other was a sandy pool with nowhere to run in the quest. As an incentive for their better performance during the hanging challenge, the producers allowed the 100 contestants to choose who they preferred to compete with, and also the choice of arena, by order of their rankings in the hanging challenge. This incentive plays a significant role as a strategic tool to determine the outcome of the quest. Choose the right contender at the right time, in the right arena, and your position in the competition will be secured. However, the manner to which the contenders make their choices creates an interesting stir in the media, inducing a spectrum of opinions, analyzing the competitive psychology and mindsets of the contenders. In the next video, we will provide more insights to the commentaries from the media and more psychologies behind the competition mindsets of the contenders and how they shape the outcomes and results of the games.